Okay, well, good afternoon, everyone. Really honored that you have joined us for this afternoon's workshop with the one and only, the amazing Kendal Netmaker. I had the privilege to listen to him for a couple of workshops back in 2020. So I'm super honored, super excited that he's here this afternoon to talk about Indigenous development and prosperity. So really good session. I walked away, I listened to him this morning. I walked away with some takeaways, some tangible action items. So really good presentation, really good content. So we're really honored that you are here with us, Kendal. And we're honored all of you are here participating. This is BC's Links to Learning webinar with Can Do. Now, you don't have to be from BC. Some of you might be listening in from across the country. So wherever you come from, we say welcome. You're all welcome to be here. This presentation this afternoon is going to be interactive. So we would love to hear your voice, your stories, your experiences. I always love hearing from the circle. It always inspires me. So your voice is welcome here. So my name's Michelle. I am joining from Amiskwaciwa, so Edmonton Treaty 6. But I am a prairie girl. I come from Saskatchewan, so all my roots and family lives out there. But I'm honored to say I love the city life. So welcome. At the end of today's workshop presentation, there is an opportunity for you to fill out an evaluation. So lend your feedback, lend your voice to this presentation and workshop. And when you do that, when you fill out that evaluation, your name will be entered to win a draw. You will have a chance to win one of two Visa gift cards. So please fill out that evaluation. There will be also more opportunity for questions and answers at the end, but today's presentation is pretty interactive. So feel free to lend your voice, your thoughts, your story, your experience to today's conversation on Indigenous development and prosperity. So the workshop today, Indigenous peoples are looking for ways to grow their economy so their membership can prosper. Throughout history, they have faced obstacles that have limited their growth and have had to look at other ways of creating prosperity. It is very important that we understand one another in order to work together for a prosperous future. So Kendal today is going to take us into the worldview of Indigenous peoples and how we can all prosper together. Let's build economies for a prosperous future. So Kendal is joining us from Saskatoon, where he lives with his wife and his children. Some of you may know him from Nichigir. I know when I went to visit my relatives in Saskatoon and I checked out one of the malls and I saw this incredible place called Nichigir, and I bought a couple of shirts. So he's known for that. He also has a book called Driven to Succeed. He's been one of the top 40 under 40 in Canada, which is amazing, remarkable. So this young man is full of passion, full of knowledge, full of inspiration. So we welcome you, Kendal. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you to Can Do for hosting this amazing webinar series for all of us here in this country. Today, I just want to say, I'm thankful to be here with all of you, and I welcome you to this webinar. And today, we're going to be focusing on what does it mean to live a prosperous life, not just as Nehiyawak, as First Nations people, but also as people from our nations and representing the people that we lead. I asked a question on this morning's webinar, and I'm going to do something similar to this morning's webinar. We did it for Alberta, so the Alberta Links to Learning. And I want you all thinking about this question. If I were to ask you, what does it mean how would you define Indigenous prosperity, Indigenous development in your own words? And what I'm going to do in a few moments, I'm going to hand it over to Michelle to answer that question. And for anyone else who wants to come in, whether it's Ken, Jason, Jasmine, and so on. If you want to come in and give us your input on that, I would love to hear what your thoughts are on that. And then what I want to do is I want to touch on three key areas that I really feel are key to developing and maintaining the growth in our Indigenous communities, not as only as individuals, but as leaders and as a nation and so on. So, Michelle, what are your thoughts if I were to say, how would you define Indigenous prosperity and development? What would you say to that?
Thanks, Kendall. So I come from a background of community development and community engagement, and then I also own my own business. So when I think of those two pieces coming together, I think of reciprocity. I think of collaboration. I think of partnership. I think of not leaving anyone out of the circle. So, we see a lot of homelessness, a lot of our people living on the streets and struggling with poverty and low income. And so to see those people, move and be welcomed into the circle. So even, as I thrive in my own business, if I see, my own people struggling out there, I don't see that as thriving necessarily in my business. So I want to bring that reciprocity into our circle, into our people, and create engagement that way.
Yeah. Thank you, Michelle. That's a good one. Anyone else want to come in and share their thoughts on that, whether it be Ken, Jason, Jasmine, Roger, Jim, Chantel, Hannah, Shannon, and so on? Just unmute yourself and come on in.
So for me, I don't really necessarily have too much experience, but growing up back in our community, I saw the very many struggles, even in my generation, that we had. And for me, what I think development and prosperity for our people is to be able to implement things that are going to lift everyone up and nobody's left behind. Nobody falls through the cracks, and they are all valuable and worthy of that. And that's what it means to me as an individual. And I do my sorry, my little guy just onto the bed here, knocked over the iPad. But anyways, that's what it means to me. And I do my best to contribute to being a positive role model in that way, because I've personally experienced my own struggles being back at home and watching other people struggle, and then having our own struggles as a family as well. So I do my best to contribute in a positive way, to just show people that it is possible, that we do have resources, that there are people there to reach out to look up to, and whatnot. So that's what it means to me.
Yeah. Thank you, Jasmine. Thank you, Michelle. We have time for one more person. If someone else wants to come on in, just unmute yourself, come on in to the conversation. What does Indigenous prosperity and development mean to you? I think that's a question that is on a lot of our minds. So if anyone wants to come on in, Jim?
Oh, hi, I'm with Huayet in Port Alberni, and our motto is ancient spirit, modern mind. And what that means to me is that the nation can build on its past and the cultural strengths that it has and its respect for the environment, for each other, but utilize the elements of, well, a modern mind, but in other words, move into the more modern world where it takes an understanding of what that is in order to prosper. So you need to understand basic economics, financing, business attitudes, and operational attitudes. So, that you build on the strengths of the past, but take advantage of what you need to take advantage of in the modern world.
Awesome. Thank you, Jim. Thank you. Did anyone else, Chantel, did you want to touch on that as well?
I was just going to say, there are a couple different things that I'm looking to learn today, because I have a background in economic development. So I understand, that side of things, development. But for me, it's just working more closely with First Nations people. So I'm actually new to BC. I just moved here from Ontario a couple of weeks ago. And I think the First Nations culture is even different here than it is compared to Ontario. So just learning a little bit about that and how we can just better work together to get everybody involved on different projects and development and stuff like that.
Awesome. Thank you, Chantel. Ken, Jason, any of you want to come in?
Hello, Ken here from, actually I'm from McLeod Lake, working with Salat First Nations here for a few months. Living in a few different areas in BC, it kind of gave me an insight on a lot of the struggles, you know, not only First Nations, but I mean as communities too. So it really gave me more respect for everybody, and give me a good vision on how everybody's connected, economically wise, but also just struggling with everyday needs and prosperity. I mean, that could be a few things too, but stuff that comes to mind is how we could come together as communities, building each other up, and really trying to be as healthy and positive in mind moving forward.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you, Ken. Thank you for that. Jason, do you have a few moments to lend us as well?
Yes, yes. I guess my take on it would be to develop, do any development that we require with while adhering to our cultural values. There's a saying that we say here: if you're going to do something, do it in a good way.
Yeah.
Which includes inclusion with the nation, with other nations. We're very big on inclusion.
Mm. Thank you, Jason. Someone else just unmuted themselves. Do you want to come in? Nope. Okay. All right. Thank you all for your input. So I really appreciate, again, we're going to make this very informal today. So I'm going to ask a lot of questions and we're going to get a lot of input. So there's three keys that I want to focus on today. And I liked what you just said there, Jason, about doing things in a good way. As Indigenous people, there tends to be a disconnect between Indigenous and non-Indigenous people in terms of that saying that Jason just said, doing things in a good way. Where does that come from? It comes from a term where past pre-contact days, everything we did was within harmony with this thing called Mother Nature, Mother Earth, and so on, our mother who looks after us and so on. And so everything that we do, even especially when you're raised culturally, when you go and pick a plant, a medicine to help yourself, help your communities, it's not just take. You don't, that's against our cultural backgrounds. You have to offer something like tobacco before you take. But even when you're taking, it's not, you don't take in an abundant way of thinking. You don't overdo it. You don't, pick the whole thing and it's all to yourself. We're always thinking of the next people that come after us. And I think that's where the disconnect is right now in the prosperity for all, the development for all. So when we reevaluate the people that we go and serve, our communities, that our membership, even if you're an entrepreneur and you have people that you're bringing into, you're serving them and the people that they serve and so on. So the first thing I want to touch on really quickly is this word called partnerships and how we can use partnerships to help us to all get ahead. Now, one of the things that who commented on that really quickly? I think it was Jim who touched on this. We have to educate ourselves, but even before all this happened, when economic development was starting to come into our communities, what happened was a lot of non-Indigenous people would come and partner with us in so many different ways, whether it be for natural resources. That was the predominant thing, a lot of natural resource development. When they created those partnerships, it came from a lopsided point of view, so to speak, and a lot of our membership eventually suffered. That happened all across this country. Why does this happen? Because we didn't know. We had a lack of education in those areas. Fast forward to 2021, where there's an abundance of information. More people are becoming educated. More people are becoming driven. More people are becoming entrepreneurs, leaders, and so on. Less of that will happen. So we're catching up, so to speak, in terms of the education gap and talking about ECDev and entrepreneurship, profit and loss, all that type of stuff. So when we look into the present moment, I really feel that the future of getting ahead quicker is going to be on this word called partnerships and how we effectively use them. What is an effective partnership? An effective partnership is something called a win-win. It's very simple. You both come to the same table, you establish what you're trying to achieve, and you make it a win-win. Now, when you're going in your careers and you're trying to establish partnerships where whether it's, I'll give you an example. There's a company in Saskatoon who does these really amazing modular homes, and we're trying to find a way to help service them in First Nations communities. Something you can load in the back in the semi, go and prop up on any reserve, and it's sustainable. It's made better than all the stuff that you normally see on the reserves. Okay, that's an example. This company, unfortunately, is non-Indigenous. Okay, so we have to find a way to partner with them. How do we partner with people like that? Well, you find ways to look at the workforce. Do they employ Indigenous people? Can they employ Indigenous people from your community to build those homes during that contract period? Things like that. Now, that's just one example of a partnership. When you go back to your communities, I want to ask an open-ended question. Can you give me one example of an effective partnership that is sustainable, that's impacting one community, that's impacting a lot of the people in a positive way? So if I were to say that, Michelle, I want you to think about that. What is one example you can share with us of an effective partnership, and that's how it's doing a lot of good for a lot of people in your communities and so on? It doesn't have to be from your community. It could be in an urban center, urban reserve, and on reserve. It's up to you how you want to describe that. So Michelle, I'm going to ask you that first. Can you give us one example?
Yeah. So being somebody who lives in a urban center, there's lots of partnerships and collaboration that are happening. But I can specifically say in the neighborhood that I'm part of is having a partnership with community leagues. So it's been imperative to just bring some understanding about our Indigenous way and our worldview and how we do things, and that we have a voice that can strengthen this community. But also, borrowing, using their facility to do programs. So it's like, reciprocity. So we're teaching, we're educating, we're lending, and we're growing and just really building community. So the partnership with our community league has been really good.
Awesome. Thank you, Michelle. Does anyone else have anything to add to that? You can just unmute yourself, come on in. Any of you can give us an example of an effective partnership that you've witnessed in your communities, wherever it is that you come from, and so on. You can feel free to unmute yourself and come on in.
My name is Roger Knopper. I'm in Port Alberni, and one of the examples that I can provide is joint ventures with private sector organizations where they want to partner with you, but they need an Aboriginal or an Indigenous company to demonstrate their social and economic vision. So there are many of these joint ventures that are available that one of my previous organizations was involved in, especially when it comes to federal contracting, federal government contracting under the Program for Strategy for Aboriginal Businesses. This is a set aside for Aboriginal businesses, but you have to be 51% owned Aboriginal business. So you get a joint venture, you're 51% ownership. The two organizations or three organizations provide the skills necessary to complete a project.
Awesome. Thank you, Roger. Thank you. Thank you. I have time for one more. If anyone else wants to also give one example of an effective partnership that they witnessed, feel free to unmute yourself. Jim?
By the way, hi, Roger. Jim Lee from Port Alberni as well. One example that our nation is entering into through our group of businesses is a partnership with a local company that's developed technology around growing oyster seed. And due to the fact that we can access government grants that they couldn't, we're able to acquire capital to invest in that company in a partnership. And what we're acquiring is really scientific knowledge of the current owners. And we're adding to that our ability to finance the expansion of the business, as well as to offer up one of our aquaculture tenures for eventually growing the oysters. So it's an example of a good one. We're buying expertise and management skills that we don't have and contributing capital to that business venture.
Awesome. Thank you, Jim. Thank you. Thank you all for your input into that question. So the first one I want to talk about was partnerships, right? We talked about the effectiveness of these partnerships that we're striving towards. The second thing that I want you to ask yourself is a lot of things that we've seen in our communities, not everything, but a lot of things are very short-term focused, okay? It's like there's a project, it does really well, and then all of a sudden, a few years later, all that money depletes. That's not exactly sustainable. So when we talk about a sustainable partnership, what we're looking at realistically is how do we create a sustainable partnership that lasts generation to generation to generation? Because that's how we've been thinking. That's how our ancestors thought. We need to bring that mindset back into how we do business because it's bigger than just us. Everything we do in this moment affects all the people that are to come after us, all of our children, our grandkids, and so on. So the decisions that we make as leaders when we're building partnerships, when we're growing our companies, when we're hiring teams and so on, this is like our legacy. So the legacy that you leave can either uplift people for generations that come, or it can deplete every resource that you have at your disposal in your communities, in your businesses, and so on. So that's the question that we have to ask ourselves. Sometimes it's a tough question to ask. Everything we do needs to be sustainable moving forward. The last thing that I wanted to get in before we do a Q&A with everyone here is, I think the strongest one out of this three is this one. Probably the one that you'll probably resonate with the most. In this moment, when we're thinking about Indigenous prosperity and development, if you would have noticed during COVID right now, there's a trend happening. And if you're on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and I know Jasmine's been trying to get me going on TikTok, but I don't want to do it yet. I don't want to do those dances, okay? I just can't do it, okay? It's not me. But we're seeing this rise of Indigenous digital branding, putting themselves out there on these social platforms. And there's something that's being tied to all this. These people are starting to sell products online. They're starting to sell services online. So when we're to sum this word up, it's called Indigenous entrepreneurship. That is the future of our communities. The more we empower Indigenous entrepreneurs, that's where the prosperity will start to flow. You'll create more ripple effects and from other people. It's not going to come from relying on the band to hopefully create something for us. That's a reliant-based mentality. We need to remove that. We need to start thinking abundantly for everyone that we can empower in our communities. Because the more people we empower, the more people that we empower through creating their own economies in their communities, all of a sudden that person that creates that business can go and help a few other people from the network. The person that you helped over here can go help a few more people in that network. It's no more relying on one stream of opportunity from federal to our First Nations, whatever that might be, from tribal council to our bands and so on, to help really, eventually hit to us. That's old school. We need to change that thinking. And I could tell you a lot of us in this webinar have gone through that. It's you become systematically reliant upon a system, and you think that all your opportunities are going to come from that. And I think that right now, one of the things that COVID has done for a lot of us is it's shown us that, yes, we can become entrepreneurs. Yes, we can sell a product. Yes, we can do that. Yes, we can become TikTok famous if I learn how to dance, maybe. Stuff like that can happen, right? This is the future of opportunity right now. The old school way of doing things, like, I still call this old school, like using natural resources is old school. We need to find sustainable ways of doing that, yes. And we have them. There's a lot of renewable things that we can do right now. We're educated enough to know that. Why aren't we doing it for the next generation, right? So when we go back to, it can't be always take. It has to be give, take, offer, and so on. Always thinking of the next generation to come after us and so on. So I really believe that number 3 there, entrepreneurship, the more entrepreneurs we can develop, the more people and ripple effects that we can see happen out there in the world. Truly believe that. And I've seen that. I gave an example this morning. I'm working with 20 Indigenous entrepreneurs in a group like this. Every week we're on a group call. They're from the West Coast to the East and so on, in between the prairies and even up to the Northwest Territories. These entrepreneurs have their own niches. They have their own struggles. They're driven. And sometimes all they need is to connect with someone like yourself to present them an opportunity, to find ways to partner, to become effective in growing companies together through partnerships. So to sum this up, ladies and gentlemen, sustainable partnerships, empowering our entrepreneurs. And the last question is, are we doing enough for ourselves to do that? Sometimes we have to go back and visit past mindsets of how we've been conditioned from birth up until now. I was talking with the Can-Do team recently about several webinars back. I was talking about how I didn't have a ec dev mindset for till way many years later. Everything in business, building prosperity, building teams, development, and so on, came from doing this one thing, making a commitment to learn more, asking questions, being on seminars like this, finding mentors to learn from, reading the right books, going to in-person seminars when they had them. Now it's all there's more seminars than ever now. So we have the knowledge right at our fingertips. We can educate ourselves. We can break those past mindsets of how we think things were and so on. And we can start thinking more abundantly, start thinking more prosperity so that we can impact those in front of us, but also around us, our community members and so on. That's where it comes from. I could tell you just from my own journey. Most of you probably have witnessed it in some way, right? I grew up like that kid that was reliant upon a welfare check from his mom, right? I grew up like that. I was there from K to 12. It took many years to remove that mindset of relying on that welfare check and eventually figuring out how a business was. I didn't know what a business was. I got into university as an ITEP, Indian Teacher Education Program student, studying to become a teacher, hoping I'd become a teacher. And then all of a sudden I got into business. How did that happen? I had to make an effort to show up to things like this, being at workshops, being at seminars. And you're all on the same track. You're all creating your own economies in your own way. So I want to thank you all for being here. I want to thank you all for allowing us to share this time so that we can all empower one another to keep moving forward. My next question for everyone in this room is, when we're thinking about entrepreneurs who empower others, if you can think of an entrepreneur and give an example of how they're using this model of not only creating prosperity for themselves, but also creating prosperity for those around them, helping in a good way. I'm going to hand it over to Michelle to answer that question, and we'll kind of go around the room. So Michelle, if you can think of one person that's doing a lot of good from what they've created, an entrepreneur, and they're creating sustainable partnerships, they're creating prosperity for themselves and the people around them, who would that person be and why?
Yeah. So here in Edmonton, there's a little, like if you go right into our downtown core, there's this little shop called the Nook. And it was a mom and daughter who got together and decided they wanted to open up this. Basically, it's a coffee shop with fantastic cinnamon buns, by the way. But they knew where they were. They knew right in our downtown core, that is where, our people who struggle with homelessness and addictions, it's all right in our downtown core, right visible. And so they purposely picked that spot because they wanted to be with the community. And then so they opened up shops, started their business, and then they also made space for that community. So, because what I see a lot of times is businesses say, if you can't pay for anything, if you're struggling on the street, we don't want you in here. Yep. But they had opened up their doors. They started a program so people could give them $5, and that would go into a pot where if people come in off the street needed a coffee and something to eat, they'd give it to the community. So that to me is entrepreneurship.
Love that. Yeah, that's awesome. That reminds me of just in Saskatoon, Michelle. We have it's called Bannek Express. I don't know if you heard of that. So they sell like Bannek burgers. They sell everything Bannek, right? And it's really good stuff. So they're downtown Saskatoon, and they created a buy one give one. So some customers can come and buy in a meal and buy a second one, and they hang up the give one on their wall. So anyone off the street who's struggling can go and pick that sticky note and redeem it. Awesome. That's prosperity for all. That's, you know, that's, and if you Google her, unfortunately her sister passed away, and she just took in all of her kids. So she's got like a full household of kids, and she's a full-time business owner trying to grow this thing, right? So that's also speaks to the, you know, our First Nations female entrepreneurs and their resilience. That's powerful stuff right there. So anyone else have any examples they want to come in and share? Feel free to unmute yourself.
Hello, can you hear me?
Hello, Vincent.
I just wanted to make a comment about that. Like I currently work with in the mining industry, and I used to work for my band with McLeod Lake Indian Band. And what we did as a band, we would do partnership, or we built a company called Does Show Construction, and that allowed for the band to actually do big business, big projects with mining companies, civil works, pipeline works, and it actually employed quite a bit of our band members. And you know, that's what allowed for me to make the jump to, well, being an employee. I'm not an entrepreneur, but you know, I still working towards it. But I'm using that knowledge to allow for myself to understand big business and how it works for companies and bands like mine.
Vincent, was it the band that created, or an individual from the band that created?
It was the band. It started out as an individual, and then I think it grew from that point on.
Nice. That's a good idea. I like that, Vincent. Thank you for sharing that. Anyone else have any examples? You just unmute yourself. Come on in. Chantel, Cindy, Jim, anyone else? Ken, Jason, feel free to unmute yourself. Hello, Chantel.
I have a quick example. So back home in Ontario, we had this one company in the summertime. He'd set up by Canadian Tire and sell hot dogs, and made tons of money, like thousands selling hot dogs. It was insane. And with this money, he was able to pay for, it was kind of like a modified school bus, and it had like a bit of a seating area in it, and that school bus would drive around in the wintertime and provide meals to those that were hungry, because where I was, there was a big population of homeless people. So he did that a couple of times a week, specifically in the wintertime, and yeah, it was just really great for the community.
That's pretty awesome. Holy man, that's awesome. Thank you, Chantel. Thank you, Vincent. Anyone else want to come on in? Roger?
Sure. I want to make a comment that I find many First Nations people are incredibly entrepreneurial. They find ways to make a buck in many different ways. What they need, and I think Jim mentioned it earlier, is training and support on the business side of things.
Yeah.
It's not through lack of trying or willingness, it's just through lack of education, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
And I have provided a lot of active workshops to community members and mentoring to get them off the ground, to provide them that, you know, value-added service. And another piece, networking. That's how you form partnerships. That's how you get collaboration.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Roger. Thank you. Appreciate all your, Jasmine, you wanted to come in?
Yeah, sure, if you don't mind. I actually want to mention, because I experienced business coaching. I've experienced that, as well as like entrepreneur workshops and all of that good stuff. And I actually didn't initially meet Kendal in this workshop, but I was introduced to him and what he offers at a workshop in Parksville. And this was in 2018. I was pregnant with my youngest at the time, and I think the inspiration started there, in a setting where there were more than one of business owners, and Kendall stood out to me the most, and you're the inspiration for me. He actually helped me successfully launch a business during COVID and during fighting cancer as well. And so for me, not only myself, but for my dad as well, I struggled getting through to my dad for years, trying to bring him to my level of social media and suggestions of how he could improve his business, making recommendations of little things like how he could be packaging his jewelry and what have you. So that's what we do, is we offer apparel, jewelry that is hand engraved by my dad, as well as now we are going to be launching accessories as well. And it took for me being brave to reach out and say, hey, like, I've met Kendall in person, I've experienced his workshops, I've researched who he is, what he's accomplished, what he offers. And that took my dad to another level. So not only in my generation being young, it also reached my dad, who is now an elder, basically. And just for Kendall to have that strength and, I guess, knowledge to reach people in different age groups, I think is so vital for our people, is to have people that can meet you on different levels. It took for us connecting to Kendall for my dad to say, yeah, okay, like, these bigger business ideas, are not a bad thing. So we've been able to successfully launch our business during COVID, with the help of Kendall. And yeah, Kendall's my inspiration for everything. So I wanted to just share that.
Thank you, Jasmine. Holy moly. So like, that's resilience right there. That story of she's like cancer survivor. Remember when and I didn't know that until like halfway through our sessions this summer. She told me, I'm like, holy crap, we got to find a way to go through this. So I'm proud of you, Jasmine. Keep it up. Keep inspiring. That's amazing stuff right there. Ken, Jason, Cindy, anyone else want to come on in and share an example that you see someone is doing an amazing job with?
Just wanted to bring up the gas bar, the gas station in McLeod Lake that the economic development, the ECDev team, the board is called Tekane Community Development Corporation. And so they helped bring forward this idea of like, they had this big vision of, not only having a gas bar, but I mean, other opportunities within it. So that sparked other, ideas of having First Nations run kitchen. So, providing First Nations foods, which it now provides, which is great. But there's also other bays in it. So it's like forestry, public works, and a fire hall as well too. So it's like this huge, this one idea which just spiraled into such a huge idea, and it's still going pretty strong today.
Awesome. Thank you, Ken. Thank you. Jason.
I guess one I could talk about is in regards to our catering company. It is a band owned company. However, it's during these trying times through COVID, they lost a lot of revenue. So what innovative idea that they thought up was maybe we could provide cultural gift baskets. And during the holidays, they made a lot of revenue just selling cultural gift baskets to a lot of our partners. Right now, we have a lot of activity because of the CGL pipeline that's going through. So a lot of our customers were these companies that would typically have a Christmas banquet for their employees, and in lieu of that, they gave out a lot of these gift baskets.
Awesome. That's a good story. I like that. Thank you, Jason. Thank you, Ken. Thank you, Jasmine. Anyone else want to come on? Kristen, Cindy, Hannah, feel free to unmute yourself if you like. Cindy, if you like as well. Feel free to unmute yourself and come on in. All right, all right. So I want to say thank you so much for your input thus far on today's webinar. It makes it so much more funner when we have a lot of people coming in. So I appreciate all of your input, and I've been throwing you on the spot, some of you. So you've been sharp. Thank you guys so much for being ready for that. Moving forward, I also want to ask a different question here. This question is a common theme that we've been talking about in terms of the individual, right? And how do we educate ourselves to understand the business lingo, to understand how to do business with other people? I can only speak from my own experience when I talk about it was a decision for myself to having, I had no choice but to learn that because that was a path I decided to commit to. So when you, in entrepreneurship, I find a lot of entrepreneurs, they have a similar way of doing it. I rarely deal with entrepreneurs, and I've coached dozens and dozens over the years that have had some kind of business specific degree. It's rare. And so that's a mindset that a lot of us go into. They think I need to get business degrees. I need to get an MBA, PhDs, and so on. In business, you don't need that stuff. You need to just have a drive and commitment to where you is what you want to build. So I'm a teacher, right? That was a mindset I had to overcome. I have a BA, and I was trying to start a business. Many of you probably don't have any specific training in terms of that area, in terms of, ec dev and so on. And so anyone who's watching that feels like you need some kind of specific thing just to justify why you can do it, hopefully that this webinar can show you that you don't need that. Although any specific training that you can get and you get your hands on and it's available to you, learn that stuff. Take these webinars, read those books along the way, take those certifications if you can on the spare time, do those things that can help educate yourself. But the last thing that I would say is probably the most prominent thing that all of us can agree to here is the willingness to ask for help, ask for guidance from people, ask for a mentor, ask for a coach. If there is one thing that fast-tracked everything in my career, it's always being willing to put myself out there and say that I don't know this. Can you help me? Can you show me what I need to do this? I didn't know how to write a book. I had to go ask people. I didn't know how to speak. I had to go find people to show me how to speak. I didn't know anything about business planning. I had to go find people to sit down with one of these at the time, not endorsed, by the way, by Tim Hortons, but it was a coffee, right? I was at a coffee shop. I had to learn how to write a business plan. I didn't know what I was doing. I sat there with a piece of paper, writing notes, taking notes at this place. It wasn't Starbucks. I couldn't afford that stuff yet. I wasn't, as some would say, bougie at that time. And so that's how I started, right? You have to commit to that learning. From an individual standpoint, you have to commit to those learning, to what is a business plan? How do you do a business pitch? There's things like this where we can network. So at this time, what I want you to do, there's a chat box. I want you to put in your contact details. This is also going to turn into some networking. Input your contacts, where you're from, what you're open to. If there's something that you're trying to build, put it in the chat box. Say, hey, I could say, hey, I'm Kendal from here. I'm looking to grow this. If you'd like to sit down, please email me for a Zoom coffee or whatever that might be. Put it in the chat box to your contact. I know Jasmine just put her contact of her business, what she does. Feel free to put that in there, because this is the time when we can possibly meet someone that may positively impact our business for the future. Okay, it starts right here. So to sum this all up, we have time for one opening question. I'm going to bring you all into it. As we move forward into 2021 and the blessings of 2021 and 2020, I call it blessings because it forced us to think within. It forced us to get uncomfortable. When you get uncomfortable, that's when stuff starts to come out of the uncomfortable ways that usually turns into good. And what I've been finding is a lot of Indigenous entrepreneurs are rising through this stuff. They're coming out and they're trying to, if you notice on Facebook, I see products popping up left and right. It's amazing. People creating websites, people creating a different service and so on. They're making Facebook pages, they're making Facebook groups and so on. They're making websites, they're branding themselves. A lot of good stuff is happening. It's because we were forced to get uncomfortable. We were forced to confront what we had seen in front of us. It wasn't working. We have to change that for ourselves. It starts from within. It starts with a decision. The decision combined with the goal and waking up every single day towards getting to that goal. And that's where I really feel is our biggest opportunity is in entrepreneurship, helping to create a community, an ecosystem from within that is so that you can build so big and hopefully with a big vision that inspires those people around you to do the same thing. I talked this morning, I said, there was not even 5 people 10 years ago when I was just getting my feet wet in business that I can call up like on this webinar. I could not even think of 5 people in my hand that I can call, that I could say, they're just like me and I want to learn from them. Think of how much progress has happened in the last 10 years because of people like yourselves, putting yourself out there, building communities, building businesses, building sustainable partnerships. And it's just the beginning. So as we go and we move forward to the next generation to come and so on and so forth, they're going to be the ones that are going to be benefiting from all that. They're going to be the ones that are going to be nurturing your visions and so on of what it is that you want for your communities, what you want for the people that the trail and legacy that you leave when we're no longer here. All of us are going to have a lasting legacy. So that legacy is up to you. That legacy is going to be built on partnerships, sustainable ones. And if we can take this time to build our entrepreneurial ecosystem from within our communities, but also you may have staff that you may hire that may be having side hustles, they call them. Support them. Support them in building that. You don't know where that could lead to them, but also come back and benefit you in the future. I've had a few staff over the years that have worked for me that are self-employed, that became self-employed. I don't know about you, but I would rather give my time to help them succeed through working with me for a few years. Like that to me is a win-win right there. And so as we come to the conclusion, I see that we have a lot of people that are starting to network. That's awesome. A lot of people are starting to give their feedback in there. I want to ask you one question here, Michelle. If there was one quote that you can give to everyone that would inspire the people who watch right now and the recording after this, that would encourage them to keep building sustainable partnerships, building this ecosystem from within, how would you describe that and share that to people?
Ooh, that's a good one, Kendall. Immediately, I thought of this phrase that I use often, and it's slay your prayers. So I really believe prayer, intention, offering that tobacco whenever you have that idea or that vision or that plan or that gift, you offer that first. And then comes that hard work. That's when you slay. You gotta put in that effort. You gotta get that education. You gotta network. You gotta have conversations. You gotta mentorship. So that would be my quote. Slay your prayers.
Awesome. I love that. I love that. I love that. What was the lady that there was a quote this morning, Michelle? What was it again? You remember that quote?
Yep. She said, I want to be a good ancestor.
Oh my gosh. When she said that, I was like, holy crap. Like I'm going to keep that up here. That's such a good quote. I want to be a good ancestor. What does that mean? I think it's self-explanatory what that means. And so it comes down to our legacy of how we leave for the next generation to come. But most importantly, those people right around us, those are the ones that are watching us. I know a lot of people on here that work with communities, and maybe you're in your own communities that you're working with, especially when you're working with, I'll say, communities with a lot of cultural, ceremonial backgrounds. I highly, 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 highly recommend that when you're doing business with them, you bring in elders from their communities, okay, to the table to discuss things. It can't just be one person that speaks for everyone. When you're dealing with communities that have a lot of, especially that really deep ceremonial traditional knowledge, you have to bring in those knowledge keepers to the table to discuss with them. It's a respectful thing to do that. And if you don't do that, you can create a lot of negative ripple effects, we'll call them. So it comes down to how you communicate. If you're trying to build partnerships with other organizations, especially other First Nations, you have to talk with the right people and get them at the same table and discuss in a respectful way. With that tobacco, offering that tobacco to those people, that's like your an offering between you guys, and also through Creator, right? You're sitting at the same table trying to make it a win-win in a healthy way, utilizing their elders to open the day with a prayer and so on. Those are the things that we need to start bringing back to how we do business, to make sure that everything flows right, because that's our roots. Those are our teachings. We have to respect and honor those things. It starts here with all of you in this room, and I really appreciate your time. I really appreciate all of you being here. So just like we're playing off of what Michelle said, the quote there of how she looks to inspire the people beyond her and beyond her path. If there was any last, I know we have about 10 minutes. If there's one little piece of feedback that you can offer to the group or anyone who watches this recording, please unmute yourself and share it with us so that we can educate one another. So please unmute yourself if you'd like to come and share something that's that you feel that can benefit the people that watch this recording. Cindy?
Don't give up.
Yes.
Keep going and ask for help, ask questions. And I heard something about networking. If you have a friend, if you have anyone that you have trust in, contact them. And you know, the word trust is very is hard for me. I don't, well, I'm trying to, but I haven't been able to trust very many people.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm trying to learn to do that, because not all people are untrustworthy. So I've been trying to do that, but trust is a big one. And yeah, just keep going.
Yeah.
Don't give up. Definitely ask questions. I know that some people have developed their own prosperity by not even having a dollar in their pocket. I don't know how they did that, but I find that very inspirational. I always think that it takes money to make money, but if there's a way that I can make money without money, that would be a way to go as well.
Mm-hmm.
I have lots of ideas and everything, and I've always had lots of ideas, but I don't have that kind of faith in myself to set anything up. And I kind of lose interest right away. So I just don't know, but I just keep on going, and one day I'll find that niche and go with it.
Yeah. Thank you, Cindy. Hey, Cindy, there's replays of the Indigenous Entrepreneurship webinars. I don't know if you got a chance to view them, but please go in after,
Sure.
or maybe Elizabeth can send them to you through after this webinar. There's
That'll
like
be
4 different
perfect.
sessions we did, right? It's all very similar, but every audience was different. And in those webinars, I gave
Perfect.
a lot of links that we use, a lot of hacks that we use, secret websites that we use, and so on to help build stuff really quickly. So hopefully if you get a chance to view those, and anyone else in here, reach out to Elizabeth to get you that link to the Indigenous Entrepreneurship webinar we did back in December. Kristen
that'd be great, because I'm in just about at my old age, so any help would be great. I heard Jasmine's dad got in there and she's calling him an elder or whatever. So there should be hope for me.
There's hope for everyone. Absolutely, Cindy. Thank you. Thank you. Kristen, then Jasmine.
Hi, Kendall. I just wanted
Hi.
to say I've been a huge fan of yours since the old days, and have seen you speak at lots of conferences and just totally inspired by how you've kept going. And I've been really blessed to get to teach in almost 30 communities now and organizations, mostly in BC. And I've partnered with an organization called For Future Indigenous Economics, and we're going to be putting a whole bunch of webinars online. And I'd love to follow up with your team afterwards to see if we can't connect some of your resources with ours. But I really want to say I appreciate all the inspiration that you give and that you share, and the way you've developed not only a social enterprise, but also a sustainable business. And I think that in itself, one of the things I always say is that the most common trait between Fortune 500 successful companies is the fact, not that they grew up with money, not the fact that they had different levels of privilege, but it was because they had someone in their family who started a business. And just seeing a mom or dad or an auntie do that work at the table and on weekends, for everyone who's starting a business, you will be that role model for others. So it's really exciting to see all that you've done. Thank you.
Thank you, Kristen. Feel free to reach out to me. Actually, you know what? I'll put my email right at the chat box if anyone.
Oh, I got your info.
You got it? Okay. For anyone else, I will.
Good idea for everybody. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you, Kristen. It's an honor to have you with us. Jasmine.
So I guess what I wanted to share was to remember that even if you aren't too connected to your culture, or if that isn't a upbringing that you had, is I highly recommend reconnecting and staying connected to your culture, because I feel like that is our foundation for who we are. It brings us the strength we need in going forward, and being able to have the energy and the strength of our ancestors to be able to put into these businesses or partnerships or whatever it is that we're doing, to be able to learn our language, be a part of our culture, to be able to even just listen to our songs and dances. I find that is a really strong foundation for any success that we have as individuals. That was just my message that I wanted to share through all of the challenges that I've had being a young Indigenous woman and being at higher risk for some things. It's given me the strength to be able to come through and pull through everything. So that's always my advice is, lean when you don't feel strong enough, lean on your culture, even if it's used. There's so much on YouTube even to this day that you can access for cultural purposes. There's First Voices on the internet that you can use to learn your language. There's so many resources to be able to connect yourself, and just wanted to share that would be my advice for anybody who is wanting to move forward, is just to remember to stay connected to our culture.
Thank you, Jasmine. Thank you. Appreciate all of your feedback. Chantel, Hannah, if you want to come on in, feel free to unmute yourself if you want to give any last words of encouragement to the future here. Okay, what about Jason?
I guess what I would contribute is celebrate the positives. You find that a lot of First Nations dwell on the negative. Celebrate your positives, but also learn from the negatives.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Jason. Thank you to everyone for allowing us to be here together. Looks like it's that time of the hour with time to wrap up here. So before I hand it back to Michelle, I just want to say thank you all. I thank you all for being here on Nuts with all of us. And I'd say it was an honor to be here with all of you. And thank you for all being vulnerable and sharing your input with everyone. Everyone's going to learn from you. And most importantly, you're going to be inspiring those to come. So keep up the amazing work. It's an honor just to be here with all of you. And I'm going to hand it back over to our amazing MC, Michelle.
Woo! Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Kendall. That was really great. That was a really great session. Glad that you could join us. I hope you walk away inspired. I hope you walk away with some tangible things that you can do in your world, wherever you work, wherever you do community, that you have a contribution, you have a voice. And take those small steps. Sometimes we have all these big expectations that we got to do this and this and this, but it's really small steps. What's in your daily habits? What's in those, like, you know, what Jasmine had said about connecting with culture, right? Take those small steps, take it a day at a time. And then when we've arrived, we'll all be going to Starbucks. So thank
No
you.
more of this stuff, eh? No more of this
No,
stuff,
no
Michelle.
more Tim Hortons. Starbucks is where it's at. But thank you so much. Thank you also. I love hearing your voices and your stories and your experiences and your knowledge. So thank you so much. That's what this is about, right? Learning, sharing with one another so we can grow this circle to be stronger. So thank you all. Thank you, Kendal. We're going to just end with a good prayer, a good thought, and we give thanks to Creator for this gift of another day, that sun rose in the east this morning. That was Creator saying, go chase this day, go chase that blessing, think abundantly. So we give thanks for the gift of this day. We thank you, Creator, for the lands, the water, the animals, the plants, all of our relations. We extend so much gratitude for what we have. So help us to walk in a way that's honorable to the circle, to you, and to our own spirit. Hi, hi.
Hey, hey.
Take care, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Take care, everyone. Thank you.